Hello and welcome to Interview with a Geek. I'm your host, John Knight. On this week's program, I'm interviewing a friend of mine, Melissa Saltzman, an engineer by day and cosplay and anime geek by night.
Hi, we're back here. No, actually, we're just starting here. I'm your host, John Knight, and with me today is my guest, Melissa Saltzman. Melissa is a friend of mine, and I've known her for several years. I've invited her on the show to talk about all things geek, and particularly a couple things that I know she's into and that I'm going to learn a little bit more about today. Not that I am completely ignorant about them, but somewhat. So, Melissa, welcome.
Thank you, John Knight.
All right. Here's my first question. So, cosplay. So, that being said, not only do I have a bad hair day going on, but I'm going to wear my hat in solidarity. Melissa was kind enough to, this is not how she normally dresses as far as I'm aware. It might be. But I'm wearing my Hoovian fez hat because fezzes are cool. And I'm going to ask Melissa to explain to me a little bit more because I'm actually fairly new at the whole cosplay thing. What is cosplay? Where did it originate? And I guess, what's its biggest appeal to you?
All right, well, cosplay is basically when you take a costume and you role play as a specific character. And it probably started when somebody thought, hey, you know who you look like? You look like this character. I think that you should dress as them. I'm assuming. A lot of people have the figure for it. For those of us who are a little bit more roly-poly, we go with Lolita. I'm not dressing as a specific character, and you would see 10 gazillion Lolita maids at any anime convention because it's based on a popular style in Japan, Gothic Lolita. And obviously cat girls are very popular at conventions because no anime is complete without the cute cat girl who comes in. And so I'm sort of trying to roll a lot of stereotypes into one here for you so that we're hitting it all at once.
Excellent.
Yes, rather than just be one specific character that only a handful of people will get because they may or may not know the series. But if you look for cosplay on images on Google.com or whatever, you will see some absolutely amazing things that people do. It's about the craftsmanship.
Okay. Again, I've done... If you're watching this and don't know me very well, I have actually done cosplay before, although it's been very limited to steampunk right now. And I know one of the things Melissa and I have in common is that we both steampunk cosplayed. To me, I got it for the same reason. It was, again, I'd never done anything like this before. It was the craftsmanship and the detail. And, I guess from my, I guess this is what I want to know from your opinion, because my observation was, I knew the craftsmanship that went into some of the steampunk outfits, the accessories, the guns, the armor, whatever. But then, when I sort of took a step back, once I sort of got into it, I started appreciating the craftsmanship and the complexity, really, of and artistry, for that matter, of a lot of the other cosplay. And I guess, is that what you're referring to, the craftsmanship, and what sort of, is that what you've sort of gotten into it for?
Well, I originally got into it because I liked the looks of some of the costumes, and it's nice to have cute things. I don't sew yet, but now I want to get into it. But I have a lot of respect for the people who actually make the costumes, and I love to go and look at the props and figure out how they made them, because as an engineer, a manufacturing engineer, it fascinates me to come up and slowly touch somebody and be like, oh, that awesome looking armor that you're wearing is foam, and this is totally doable. So it's just really interesting to see how people make the things happen. It is cool.
So that was the biggest draw for me. I personally do wear a lot of my components of my steampunk stuff. Trench coats, sometimes even the goggles, actually are very practical application.
Yes.
I do well with them. So. They're functional.
They're great headbands, too.
They actually are, but they do generate a lot of sweat, so be forewarned. I guess the thing about cosplay, though, is it's from a cultural, I say cultural perspective, you don't see, at least in the United States, a lot of people just on an average street corner, unless it's at a Comic-Con in San Diego or wherever, doing a lot of cosplay outside of conventions. Is that your experience? And I know from reading it's a little different in Japan.
In Japan, I actually was expecting to see it more often, but When I was there, I was told that they only have certain days of the week that they do cosplay. Yes, this is scheduled. And so, and it's very
Japanese.
Yes, they're very, very Japanese about it. And it's really interesting because over here, if you want to play this character with green hair, you buy a wig. Over there, you dye your hair green and you get all into it, and then you buy a wig for your regular hair to wear day to day. And that's what's insane about where there's a big cultural difference between how they look at it.
Right.
Because they view it as sort of, even though you're only doing it one day a week, that it's more a part of you.
It's a lifestyle choice.
It's a lifestyle choice, exactly.
I use that term jokingly to a lot of my geek hobbies. It is a lifestyle choice, but I wear these shirts every day. I guess I cannot relate to that. I guess I can't relate to that. But the hair's real. It's mine. This is how mine is. I did not know that. That is interesting. Well, let's talk about a little bit about con life.
Okay.
Because like I said, part of me doing the show is to explore areas of geekdom that I'm either fascinated with and want to learn more about, or completely ignorant, somewhere in between. I've been to cons. I've not been to a Comic-Con. I have been to Emerald City Comic-Con. Shout out to Seattle. I've been to Gen Con in Indianapolis. And I've been to a few other miscellaneous cons who I cannot remember the names because it's been that long. Science fiction conventions, but nothing like a Comic-Con.
There's nothing like an anime con.
That's the thing. I've never been to an anime con. I've been to cons with anime, but that's
Make this happen.
What happened? Let's go behind the scenes for a minute.
Okay.
Or a few. Tell me about an anime con.
You know, I feel like it's necessary to add here that I was a really late starter for anime cons. You go there, and there's a lot of young kids there. You hear a lot of drama llamas talking about how their moms have to stay in their room and are watching what they're doing and had to drive them there. They don't have driver's licenses. Wow. There are people that are, of an age of ours as well, but you don't hear them because they're sort of behind 29. The scenes.
When we talk about age 29.
26 for me.
I'm sorry.
So,
we're experienced geeks.
Yes, very experienced. And, we exist in the con life, but there aren't as many of them. I didn't get started on con life until about 22.
Okay.
I had heard about them before that. I had not really known what the appeal was. And then I saw one of my cousins did amazing cosplay. And I saw pictures of it up on Facebook and just geeked out over it, where I was like, that is gorgeous. And she actually handmade everything. And she said, well, you should come to an anime con. We aren't even like a drop in the bucket of what you'll see. And so I completely geeked out. I decided to go to the anime convention. And there's nothing quite like it, because you will see, people who are regular, okay in real life.
Right.
And then you're going to see the people who never leave the basement other than they come to the con.
Okay.
And people are so excited that they do not shower. And so every con's motto is got soap, and opening ceremonies, they always emphasize personal hygiene and please drink so many glasses of water a day, because so many of you just pass out and get taken away by ambulance. I mean, there's a lot of hilarity to appreciate here. If you aren't in that and you're a part of the drama llamaism, then you can really appreciate the hilarity by going. And that might be cruel. I'm alienating people right now. I'm sorry.
Not intentionally. Just personal hygiene is always a good idea. It is. It is. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, let me ask you another question. So, if I were to go on these anime conventions, there's got to be a dealer's room of some type.
Yes.
I'm totally not the tables. Totally blanking here. The breakout sessions, the forums,
the panels.
Panels. Vocabulary is fine. Panels. So there's panels. So the structure is very similar to any other con, I would imagine.
Yes.
Is there any? I guess there's a lot of showings of anime.
Yes.
That might be different.
Yes, and there's a lot of representatives who come from the different anime studios to let you know, that stuff that you've been watching illegally, this is when you're going to be able to get it for real. And they let you know about things that they're looking at picking up, and they're letting you know. You get to talk with the voice actors themselves. It's very cool to talk to them, because a lot of them have introspective on what they were thinking when they were doing the characters. Or it can be very heartbreaking, because some of them weren't familiar with the series before they decided to voice act in it. They just showed up. That's always been very heartbreaking for me. It's tough to go and see. But it's very interesting to go and listen to actual studio execs, people who are living this life and have a part in bringing it over here and are very passionate about it.
Cool, but it's very open. They're very accessible. I mean,
Yes.
again, I've
absolutely.
been to a comic convention where you're able to go up, talk to the writers,
Yes.
talk to us, whatever.
Mhm.
Although I haven't talked to any executives from that industry yet, so there's a thought. I've got a question, or maybe this is an admission. I got into a lot of things geek, not knowing what they were from early childhood. So my anime exposure was actually as a young child with the Gatchaman or Battle of the Planets on syndicated television.
Okay.
That was my first exposure. I had no idea what it was. I didn't understand why the cartoon and the syncing of the voices were off. I did not. I was
legitimate question.
I was confused as a child. I thought it was very questionable editing being done. So that was my first exposure. I didn't get in or see any other anime until I went to a convention back in the 90s, and my first, I guess, feature-length anime was Graveyard of the Fireflies.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah, this is.
Ooh, wow! You picked a tough one
This
to
is
come in on.
This is a very serious World War II bombing of Tokyo.
It's what you watch when you want to commit suicide.
Well,
Like, watch it and-
it's an incredible film. But yeah, I mean, I got hooked. So my first, feature-length film, I walked in having no clue, and I didn't leave. I mean, I was hooked. So it was incredible. So I immediately.
it is incredible.
It's beautiful. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of artistry.
Yes.
I mean, since then, I've seen things like Akira and all sorts of other Japanese anime. And again, a lot of these things in, I guess, Western culture have inspired other things, like The Matrix.
Yes.
There's been acknowledgement of that. So I think, I've seen, from my little slice of geekdom, that I've seen anime get more and more mainstream. Would you agree that it's getting there, or is there in some way?
I would say that it is a little bit, just because we're even insinuating it in movies like Kill Bill, where it's a typical Western slasher. This is very Western, and yet Quentin Tarantino is a big fan of anime, and he even had that animated sequence in it that was anime style. Yeah. And I was a latecomer in anime in general, but I think that speaks to the fact that it's getting bigger, because I sort of resisted it when I was younger, and then got hooked.
Yeah. Well, the thing that caught me off guard, as far as it becoming more mainstream and accessible, I guess, by token, is that Disney has brought anime over.
Oh, yes.
And first it was Howl's Moving Castle.
Howl's Moving Castle and Ponyo.
Ponyo, which I haven't seen yet. That's on my list.
Princess Mononoke, I believe. They had something to do with the release of that as well.
That's true, too.
That's an oldie and a goodie.
Yep.
So it's a little bit not the same that we're talking about, but yes, Disney has been showing interest in anime.
Yeah, you said that. I'm going to comment on your comment, which was not like that. There's a broad spectrum of anime.
Oh.
I mean, there's sci-fi.
Yes.
Now that I'm thinking about it, Ex Machina.
Oh, yeah.
Probably saying that probably wrong. Appleseed. There.
Yeah.
There's a whole broad. I mean, there's like Graveyard of the Fireflies, just traditional drama.
Yes.
I mean, Akira.
And historical.
And historical. Akira, sci-fi, spectacle, and then you got almost like the fairy tale.
Yes.
I mean, again, there's everything. I mean, I guess that's the other thing about anime. Am I correct from what I've seen that it's really it's across the board in terms of plots,
yes,
and even scope. Some of them are very quiet movies, and some of them are just crazy epics.
Yeah, if you're good about recommending anime, you can listen to what somebody's into, and there's something to recommend for everybody. If you're into very, very girly, very, very serious, very violent, very, very corny, there's stuff to recommend for everything. If you like machines, you like robots, there's just something for anybody, and that's where a lot of people get into anime, and they've had something recommended to them, and the person didn't ever take into account this really isn't this person's style, and so a lot of people get a bad taste of it.
Gotcha.
You have to know your audience, and you have to tell somebody this might be up your creek.
I can definitely see how that would happen. Like I said, mine I totally Saturday morning for me, I totally accidentally I saw spaceships, it was all good, and then then World War II firebombing. So my experience, I saw in just my first couple of experiences the breadth. So I got over that real quick. I have that. That being said, I will have to echo what you said, and that is, if you are an anime fan, listen to Melissa. Make your recommendations very carefully based on somebody else, on what they are into. Start them off light, like great film. Great film. Firefly, Cemetery of the Fireflies, or Graveyard of the Fireflies. It's a downer. Not a good starter.
No.
Akira, even unless someone's like into big unless you're big into sci-fi, big space, not even space opera, but big sci-fi opera, I wouldn't even go there. There's one though that came out. I'm bringing this up because of our common fandom for steampunk, but Steam Boy.
Yes.
Which came out, which being a steampunk fan, I thought was awesome in many ways.
Yes.
And I know that particular film, from an anime perspective, has sort of bridged some geekdom. So I know there's some steampunk folks that actually have gotten into anime, or more into anime because of that.
Well, Vampire Hunter D has Bloodlust has steampunk elements in it. There's a lot of them that are very cross-genre.
Well, we'll have to be talking off camera more about this because obviously there's more I need to know. But what else? Let's keep going. So,
I would just say that the best thing about anime that'll get people into it is if you give it a chance, it tells a story in a different manner than Western storytelling does. We are very drawn into the good guy and the bad guy, and like the bad guy has no redeeming qualities and he's only bad for the sake of being bad, and freedom punch him, and now everything is. And when you're looking at real life, things are more complex than that. And one of the things that a lot of anime is very good about doing is it looks at those complexities. So, for example, Princess Mononoke, which is an oldie but a goodie, and I do recommend it to people, because there really isn't a villain in that. You look at it, and the woman who's destroying the forest is doing it because she needs to create jobs to take care of these sick people. And, Princess Mononoke herself is killing these people who are just trying to do their job. It's very gray, like shades of gray.
Okay.
Moral ambiguity, and that's really what has drawn me in since day one.
Wow.
Was I caught an episode of, and this is really embarrassing to admit, but I caught an episode of Inuyasha, like 18 episodes into the series, and this series never ends, which I discovered later on and fell out of love with it. But I caught this episode where this girl's brother gets controlled by the villain and kills her entire family, and she gets put into a grave as well, and she punches her way out of the grave and says, "I cannot die, I need to save my brother." And then it's a matter of these people coming and they take her in, and she's willing to stab them in the back for the chance to try and save her brother. And I thought, this is a very strong female character.
Sure.
This is a very complex story that I appreciate because, you don't know what you would do in a situation like that. And it does a lot of examining. A lot of these still shots, it's comical, where it'll show the character and then you just hear their thoughts. And it's good at, it's cheap animating style to hear their thoughts, but you don't get that a lot in Western media.
Sure. One bit of, and I'm totally going to botch the artist's name, so I'm not even going to attempt this, and I apologize. But a Western bit of animation that feels inspired, I'm not positively sure if it was, but Samurai Jack. Have you ever, not familiar?
I know Samurai Jack. I haven't watched it because the animation style. I'm sort of a snob with I like my anime as my anime.
I'm gonna challenge you to watch, at least to try it.
Okay.
And I have the DVD, so I know I'll have to. I'm a huge fan of Samurai Jack. The reason why is some of the familiar enough a little as I am with anime, there is some anime style, stylized animation. It's part of it. Very different. I would still consider it westernized in a lot of ways, but the most excellent in their artwork versus of a feature film.
Well, and I think that a lot of things are moving in that direction, because even with 300, they're using the graphic novel style. Almost, like, this might be very...
and Immortals, which is out, by the way.
Yes, Immortals follows the same thing. That Sin City, or whatever that one was. These are all using these comic styles, but I really think that the comic styles are drawing a lot on elements that were already being used in film and anime. Yeah,
it's sort of a feeding... It's on itself or whatever, more stylized or hyper stylized.
Exactly, and hyper stylized is what comes out of anime. Hands down.
There you go. So, very interesting. Like I said, to me, it's been one of those areas that I just, I have other friends, other geek friends, not qualified and such, that are really big into anime, but it seems to me, as sort of you hinted at earlier, that they're, not your snob comment, but that there are so many genres of anime that some people can call a genre anime or think that is the paragon of what anime is.
Yes, which is not true.
That's kind of that's sort of, again, I'm not calling anybody out here, but that was sort of one of my, I sort of bumped heads with a friend of mine about anime one day, and I kind of said, well, I know there's more anime than just what you keep recommending to me. So
there are a few that people will recommend across the board, like Cowboy Bebop was a huge hit there, a huge hit here. It's a fairly good assumption to make, and there are certain ones that you would consider more anime than others. So,
but wouldn't necessarily put on a pedestal and say that's.
No, nothing is. Yeah, nothing is.
That's fair enough. All right, we're going to change gears. We've done a lot of talking about anime and cosplay. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm going to change gears. I know one of my inspirations for the show, being a jack of all geekdom, liking a lot of different things that are geeky, have a lot of different passions and hobbies. And I know that's something we also have in common, that you're a jack of all trades when it comes to geekdom. So there's steampunk, there's cosplay with you, there's anime, there's math. You're a math geek, you're a science geek.
Yes, absolutely.
I had math fear, anxiety, or whatever you call it, so can't qualify myself that way. I know, I worked on it. Never self-medicated, worked on maybe. But I guess, what other geek dumbs do you have sway over or influence in?
It's just a lot of different cosplay ones. Like in addition to the steampunk, there's also cyberpunk. It's also different character cosplays. I would say that maybe more than everything else, that I am an internet geek, and that is this is really tragic to admit. I know, yeah, exacting surprise.
No, I'm not surprised.
No, and this is something that's, I've always been into the internet because you could find your people there, and I have been into fan fiction for a very long time, and that used to be the only thing I would do on the internet, is get on for that, and then...
The only thing?
Pretty well, alright. don't call me out on that. But it's only been probably the last year. Yeah.
What?
The last year and a half or so that I discovered internet memes.
Okay, yes.
Like, I used to watch, the funny forwarded videos and things like that, and then I've discovered internet memes, and this is something that I'm very, very into, and it's interesting because it's constantly evolving, and you really have to stay on it to stay on top of these things as they come about.
It's interesting that you mentioned this. This is something near and dear to me. I have a son. If anyone follows me on any of my blogs, they are familiar with that fact. He is also very much into internet memes. I've never felt older, ever.
Oh.
I'm just saying this. No. When I never consider myself like always on top of the internet culture or cyber culture, as we used to call it. Us old people. But I thought I knew my way around memes. No, I did not. You've kept me on my toes. He's kept me on my toes. And I guess my comment sort of question here is, if there's a way to measure time on the internet, I mean this, in terms of like a historical time, it seems to be memes. No.
Okay.
It's that these things mark, like they're like mini epochs.
I thought you were going to call me out on how much time I spend on
No.
I'm so much more comfortable
There's
now.
There's one thing I'm never going to do on this show, is call anybody out on how much time they spend on their hobbies or their geeking, because I'd be the biggest hypocrite ever in film. So no, I can't. No, this is, right?
I'm thrilled now.
So I'm never going to do it. No. But it's that really, you can literally almost go back. I'm fascinated by history and history of human communication and whatnot.
It's a sort of micro history.
It is, but there are moments to mark. Okay, getting tongue-tied, but here's one of my point. You have an internet meme which can then spin off and influence popular culture, right?
Yes.
And then that popular culture may roll up into, say, a feature film or a book or whatever, and then sort of there's a more substantial moment in time or piece of literature or film that sort of marks a decade or a year. And then it keeps going up. So we've seen cat videos, seems to be a Catterday. These things, are now marking the knots, if you will, or the first decade of this millennium. And, even almost year by year, it seems, there's something else that sort of, I don't know how people are going to look back and the influx of popular culture.
We get too much time on our hands.
That's possibly one. But do you get a sense? Can you think back of some of these memes, and you kind of know, oh, I remember that. And I'm not calling out for a specific date, but I mean, do you get a sense of year by year? You can say like 2007 was the year of X, or 2008 was heavy into. I mean, do you have a sense of that?
I'm still pretty new with it, but I can remember old videos because I remember back when it was only the parents with the email account and everything had to go through them.
Yes.
And I remember the whole family would gather around and watch this little video. And, now I see it pop back up and I'm like, oh, I remember those days back when we'd sit around with hot chocolate together.
After we let our clay tablets dry by the...
How'd you know about that? I didn't know I told you about that.
No, I'm just, like I said, it's one thing that's really fascinating because, this is one word I'm going to completely bastardize or butcher here, but the term hipster. And I've never been...
Everybody hates hipsters.
I've never been called a hipster. I've been called worse, I suppose, but I've never been called a hipster.
There is no worse than a hipster.
There's nothing worse than a hipster. I'll keep that in mind. My question is, it seems that I've met people who other people have called hipster, because I'm still nebulous on this definition, but they, and I'm not in any way trying to, if this is you.
Oh, no.
I'm not going there, I'm not setting you up. But the question is that I've known some people supposedly that are hipsters that utilize their expert knowledge of internet memes to prey on other people and try to become, or feel that they're superior. Because I just look at people and try, because if something goes over my head, and I'm very honest with, Melissa, we exchange, comments on Facebook, when I lost me, I don't know, I'm dumb. But,
you should have Wikipedia'd that. I gave away my secrets.
Oh! No, but have you ever seen people trying to use this? I mean, really intentionally trying.
You mean cyberbullying?
Yeah, for like.
I'm a crazy troll. I think that you're aware of the fact that I was raised by trolls. Yes. We lived under a bridge.
It has nothing to do with your location in Michigan.
It's true. And I have troll brothers, and so I have not experienced cyberbullying myself because I don't like to think of myself as a cyber bully. But I guess that when I think somebody's being stupid, I will not hesitate to bring out my troll powers and use them.
So it's not.
They're very misunderstood creatures.
That's what I've heard.
It's when you do something not for the act of doing it itself, but rather for the rise that you can get out of somebody.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is it's not troll. I'm literally talking about people doing things, and or
trying to influence the world.
I don't know, maybe
like this whole Occupy Wall Street movement. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No,
not at all.
I've never heard of that.
I don't know if you're aware of the fact that it actually started from an image on it wasn't Flickr, Reddit. It was a Reddit image that somebody put up. And it was just some guy wrote on a piece of paper, I am in 99%, and he wrote down. And that's how this whole movement started. That was a picture that a guy took of himself holding onto a piece of paper. Wow. So can memes change the world? It can put a lot of people on the street protesting. We'll see what happens.
Can help. Let's
I don't know. To be continued.
Yeah, I was like, it definitely could be help. I don't know. Like I said, to me, it's maybe a continuation of an older form of other non-subversive form of popular culture where, the idea of the day, for lack of a better term, gets turned into the internet meme of the day. Yeah. Which can spread like, I think someone's proven that the internet's faster than wildfire. So I think
that's true.
that's a little slow. So spreading literally, faster than anything in the history of human communication before. Thank God for LOL cats, I guess.
I guess.
Who knows? Maybe these things will help us, save mankind, or at least keep us laughing. So, well, very cool. I think we're getting close on time here. Let me ask you a couple more questions. Geeks. Again, the name of the show is Interview with a Geek.
Hello.
Yeah.
It is I.
It is Melissa. I have a feeling Melissa will be back. We have lots to talk about. But as far as geeks, and this is one of the things I'm going to probably get into with most of my guests, and that is not putting on the spot for the definition of a geek. What is the dictionary's definition? But when you call yourself a geek, or first of all, do you call yourself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a nerd, and a dork.
Kind of knew this ahead of time.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That being said, what about being a geek, or whatever, do you identify? What do you identify with? What does it sort of mean to you? Or what part of that definition do you sort of latch on and identify yourself with?
I latch on specifically on the geek aspect Not looking at all the other things, but I think that geek is about being really, really passionate about something. That you're a geek when you are really into this thing and you're going to geek out over it, you know, to
Like
use the term to
space.
define the term. I know, oh, I would have no idea.
Yes.
And so, there's so many things that I geek out about. I once took a quiz about whether you're a geek, a nerd, or a dork. And on the quiz, one of the questions said, you know, what kind of fan fiction do you write? And then immediately when you go to type, it goes, bah, trick question, you're a geek if you write any fan fiction. And so right there, when you're passionate enough to go in and retcon for yourself, you know.
You know you're a geek then.
Yes, that's
yes.
I.
I think there are different levels of geekness.
Yes.
I think there's entry level. I honestly believe this. I'm going to go on the record. I think in some way most human beings are a geek, and we had a talk before the actual show started.
The hipsters just don't want to identify.
There is this. I mean, let's be honest with you. Geeks are now chic, right? That's why I'm doing this whole podcast. It's all about fame and fortune for me, but and money. But it really is. This was something that a lot of people never want to identify with or talk about. And now that they are, I still think, you know, and I'm not going to blame this show because I actually like this show. But The Big Bang Theory, all right, there's a stereotype nerd geek, math science geek, the tape and the glasses, or whatever, comic book geeks, where there's sort of this narrow definition or historical maybe definition of what a geek is.
Yeah. That
sort of is in a lot of people's minds. But as like I said, we were talking before the show, I think there's music geeks, there's film geeks, there's space geeks. There are comic books geeks, there are anime geeks. There's all different types of geeks. Going back to this definition which I share is about passion, and people pursue their passions at different levels. So while you may follow me here, well, you may not dress up as your favorite anime character on say every weekend on a specific day. I do know a lot of people who do wear costumes of their favorite sporting team every other day.
Yes.
And so I am drawing a parallel here, folks. Okay, so you want to paint your face blue and say "Go Cubs," and I'm a Cubs fan. Thank you very much. Don't laugh at the Fez, because Fezes are cool. So I'm just saying that there, I think, are different types of geeks.
Absolutely.
Sports geeks, again. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But I just don't like, I guess, and part of the show is about showing that there's a little geek in all of us, and we just need to appreciate in their own way that, you want to wear your Cubs uniform to work, I fully support you. If Melissa wants to, wear this at her workplace, I want photographic evidence. So that's all I'm saying.
You should support me.
So that's all I'm saying. No, so I was curious about that. Is there a because I mentioned you got into anime late, and I like I said, I maybe have a habit of collecting hobbies and interests as I go through life. Is there anything that you're been thinking about getting into, or you thought about getting into, as far as a new geek area that's caught your eye recently that you want to share?
And this is in anime conventions, so we'll go right back full circle. Sure. I've run panels, and I've run traditionally just Hellsing panels because I am the ultimate geek girl for Hellsing. I'm a rabid fangirl, and I just decided to start some new panels where I'm going to be doing a game panel based on that game that they play in Inglourious Bastards, where you have to guess who you are, only anime style, for the geeks. And I'm also going to be running one on memes. And then I recently was discussing with my cousin while she was doing, they won the Masquerade 4-foot-tall trophy at Youmacon. And I was discussing whether some ideas for a skit. And she said, you know what, those are really good ideas. Maybe you would want to come with us. And now in my mind, I'm like, she's right. I could do a skit myself. So I'm wondering whether or not I could get into yet another aspect of being super nerdy at cons.
That's very cool.
Yes.
I mean, I started a podcast because I got more geeky, so go figure. That's very cool. Well, let me ask you a couple questions because this is one of the topics I wanted to bring up, the panels. So I've gone to some cons. I've seen panels. How hard actually was it to just sort of jump in and put your name in that?
The first con that I went to, and I looked through the schedule, and we had picked out which ones we wanted to go and see. There was a Hellsing panel, 2 nights, Friday and Saturday. Friday night we show up, and there's only one person sitting in the room, and they said the guys who were supposed to run the panel didn't show up. They went out drinking. I was left here to tell everybody to take off, and I was heartbroken. The next night, I show up, and they have one of the feature rooms that's big. There's at least 130 people in here, and the guys don't show again. And so I walked out into the hallway and I asked the people, did those guys call? Did they say anything? And they said no. And I said, well, are there rules against me just going out and taking over? And they're like, go for it. There's like 130 pissed off people in there. So I walked back in. I walked up, picked up the mic and said, you know what? I think that we're a bunch of Helsing lovers in here to be up at midnight in this room. And so I think that we can run this panel without the drunkards. So I just took audience participation, and we all just had a roundtable discussion. Everybody threw in the knowledge that they had.
Oh, wow.
And so I took everything that people had wanted to talk about, questions that were brought up that we weren't able to look up at the time. I researched it. I know a girl from Argentina who is so in on the background stories of this stuff because she has a friend in Japan who watches the interviews with the guy and everything. And so I just compiled it all. And so my first time was just winging it. I just took over a panel where the drunkards didn't show up to run it. And then I took everything that people said, and now I take what people suggest and I throw it in. And that's how it started. So it was a lot of work to put together. My next time doing it was actually organized, has pictures, all in order. I have a speech to make beforehand, but the first time was a round table of just discussing with a fellow. Yeah.
Wow. I did not know. Truly did not know this. That's awesome.
True story.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it was amusing because we had decided to drive home that night, and this was from Southern Ohio. And
we're in Michigan, by the way. So
yes.
Drive.
It's supposed to be about a 7-hour drive. I didn't realize nobody was scheduled for after us, and so time just got away from me. It was 3 a.m. before Heather, the one who actually drove, was like, time, we already packed up the car, none of our, so we had a really, really tough late night going home. But I was riding a high for quite a while after that.
I know I drove us home from
World Steam Expo.
Out in Dearborn.
Yes, and we appreciate that.
And I wasn't what I said, but we came home late that night, and it was a blast. I mean, I was wide awake.
Yeah, you did a good job.
It was not a problem.
We were less awake coming back from that one, especially because I drove for the first half of the journey, and you were tired after having to run. And these were rowdy people. So, and I mean, Helsing fans are automatically going to be a little bit higher age because it's a little bit more mature. It's very violent.
Okay.
And it comes from hentai as the original version, which
you can go look that one up on Google.
You can look. Email me. Yeah.
We'll post our email address. This is going to be fun.
It will be fun.
It will be fun.
I'm looking forward to this. No, it was very, it was exhausting that first time, but it was a great experience. And everyone since has been some of the highest times in my life is running those panels because they're my people.
Very cool. All right, Melissa, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure as always. I presume we can have you back sometime to talk about other things.
I suppose I could come up with another costume and show back up.
It's not too far of a drive for us.
No, it's not too bad.
I make it easy for you. All right, folks, thank you very much for joining us on Interview with a Geek. I'm your host, John Knight. This has been Melissa Saltzman. Please stay tuned for after credits, and we'll have her personal email address and posted. My cell phone number maybe. All right, thank you. Have a great one.